The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
And I was like, yes, hi. I was so excited.
Oh, we said hi. Let me get hi again.
Okay, hi.
A guy get to a point and he asks you to marry him, he really wants to marry you.
Mm-hmm. He ready.
Like he really feels like, you know what, she's the one. She's the one.
You already getting the goods. You got to pay for it. Bring me the ring and get on one knee.
Okay.
Or two.
You need time to observe someone and really get a sense of how well do they treat you, how well do they handle adversity.
You're not the one because you don't have grit, the perseverance. You ain't really want me because you ready to give up. Because I said no. Nah, you shouldn't have asked. But since I said no, now it's your job to stay in the game and try to fight for it.
Boy on 5 Heartbeats when you make the announcement you're going solo at the awards ceremony.
What's up? Happy One Eye Shut Day. And welcome to our podcast about many topics from the perspective of 3 married couples. You can listen to us on DefyLifePods.com, Spotify, iTunes, or any one of the other popular podcast platforms. Thank you, Chantel Lorick and Kelly Chimane, for being our patrons of the week. Your support is greatly appreciated. My name is Gina Glenn, and I am your host. And with me is my other whole, Al.
What up?
We also have Thomas and Chiquita.
Hey, y'all. Glad to be back again.
Yeah, what's going on? I'm going to make sure I don't say one eye closed this week. This is what I said last week. But, hey, you guys should have saw the look on my face.
My life.
I was like, what? I was like, Keita, what am I talking about? But anyway, I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
And we have JR and Ladine.
Hey, y'all.
What up? What up? Bad guys in the building. Let's do it.
He thinks he's the bad guy. This is hilarious.
So for the last several weeks, we have talked about a variety of great topics, most which have been just about fun and filled with levity. But tonight we decided to flip the switch and talk about what's on the hearts and minds of us here. So we're going to talk about police brutality, race relations, the protests, and anything else that comes up as it relates to those things. But before we get started, I want to take maybe just about 15 seconds of silence. Can we do silence, Jay? I guess so, since we went silent. So we're going to take about 15 seconds of silence just to lift up George Floyd, Christian Cooper, and Ahmaud Arbery. And so I chose those 3 not to diminish the plight or the journey of any of the others who have suffered or have been victims of the fucked up race relations that we have here in America and many other places in the world. But, you know, those 3 are, I think, have been catalysts for some of the things that we're seeing right now. And so I thought we would kind of just do a free-flowing conversation and allow people just to speak about what's on their hearts and their minds. But to start, I would like to ask each of you just to give maybe 2 or 3 adjectives that describe your emotions and the why as it relates to the current events and maybe the 3 people or anyone else in particular that you would like that we just paid homage to. So Al, I'm going to ask you to start.
Okay. So, I'd like to start paying homage, just start off with Eric Gardner. Because as I saw what happened to George Floyd, that was the first image that came to my mind is, here we go again. I remember them choking out another person on video, and those motherfuckers got off too. So 3 adjectives, and you said the why.
Mm-hmm. And then after each person gives theirs, then feel free to comment on what someone else has said. But, I kind of just want, to give each of us an opportunity to speak first before we, really start to engage in conversation.
Yep. So the first one is the one I used last night, which was numb. And I think because of the amount of incidents that we have experienced in my lifetime, that I'm numb to it, and it's just overwhelming at times. Second one that pops into my mind is anxious, because I think we're at a point of time that it feels familiar, but it also feels different. So I'm wondering, the anxiety is, which direction are we headed? Are we headed to chaos, where we've been for most of my lifetime, as far as I'm concerned? Or are we headed towards community, which is where I hope we're going, which then leads to my third adjective or word, and that's hopeful. And that despite what is happening in this world, I truly believe that good conquers evil. Love overpowers hate. And I believe, and I'm hopeful, that that's the direction we're going in society.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Al. Let's go to Chiquita.
Just to talk about the situation, it kinds of like the adjectives that I have. The first thing that comes to mind is just sad. Just to see how, what our ancestors have actually fought for, and what we're still fighting for years after years and years, and nothing is just, nothing have changed. You have situations where some things have changed, but we still keep going back into a circle of where the racism is still here. Like, just because we're not getting thrown from out of the bus or beat up and all that stuff, but now we're getting beat up by the cops, just having doors just shut in our face constantly over and over. So that's one. Another one that I have is I would say like heartbroken. Like this, just to hear it, just to see what's going on in this world now, it really hurts my heart. Just seeing, mainly for my kids, because I feel like I'm just scared as a parent, with this stuff just happening over and over again, and it just brings on a lot of anxiety, all of the above. Just because you're here, you want to protect your kids, you want them to have the way, but then again, we know that we're the ones that's hated on, as a community, as Black people. Another one I'm gonna kind of use Al on a little bit is I see hope, because things have changed with the kids now. Like it makes me happy inside also, just to see how these young kids are actually, fighting for us, for our freedom, for our rights. And so that gives me hope, because we are seeing a little change as far as with the governors, and they're trying to do this and do that. So I just see that there will be hope one day. It'll come.
One day. Still waiting for the day. I feel like we've been waiting for that day for about 400 years now, but
yeah,
I digress.
But we're
Tommy,
fed up now, so
you, I'm
Yeah.
breaking my own rule, right? I said we would comment after everybody had a chance. I'm
yeah.
gonna stop talking. Go ahead, Thomas.
All right. We'll be short and sweet. I'm proud. I mean, I'm proud to see. I'm proud to see. I'm proud to see the guys and ladies, gentlemen, whomever out there coming together in unity, standing together. The ones that's there for that, and standing up to the cause in unison. They're in the streets, yelling, protesting, whatever. And the ones that's tearing shit up, I ain't mad at them either. So the next one is I'm eager. I'm eager to see what comes next with the charges and who's going to be charged and what the charge is actually going to be, what how many, if the conviction, what the conviction is going to be. I'm eager to see the cases that we know it's going to be cases. So I'm just eager to see what laws are going to transform. Okay, whomever killed by the hands of the cop, boom, it's going to be a mandatory sentence. I'm just ready to see what the judicial system is going to employ. So I'm definitely eager to see that because I know it's going to be something. And furious. I'm just absolutely furious of this shit just happening over and over. It's just like it keeps looping. It's like Groundhog Day over and over and over and over again. So absolutely tired of the shit. And like I said, when things start happening and start burning shit up or protesting, rioting, and initially I was like, hey man, take that shit downtown, burn up downtown, the hell with downtown. Just don't burn up your own neighborhoods and the stores in the neighborhood because, where you going to get your groceries from? And that's where we work in. And then I heard this quote. I read this quote. I was reading this article and Martin Luther King, riot is the language of the unheard. So that for some reason that dug deep in me. It touched me. And I was thinking, damn, we haven't been heard for 400-500 years. So can you imagine? Can you imagine how we're going to speak? So things are going to be malicious. Things are going to be cutthroat because we haven't been heard for over 400 years. So at that point, as it sunk in, I was like, shit, whatever happens, happens. Whatever's going to be, going to be. So I'll close with that.
Okay, Ladine.
Whew. For me, the last is just I feel like we're living a nightmare repeatedly. For me, it's a lot. I had to take off of work yesterday just to reconnect with myself. I myself, I am definitely an empath, and that is someone that takes on the energy of others usually. Can possibly also be a conduit. So I'm able to feel things that might not be necessarily in my space. So for me, I'm going to say incredibly connected, but learning to lose the attachment from the connection because that attachment is rooted in fear. And so I do believe that I'm learning to not be fearful because I react when I'm in fear. I think most people do react versus responding when they're in fear. I think that's a lot of what's happening right now, other than just being incredibly fucking fed up. I'm definitely just overwhelmed. Just looking at all of my people, and it saddens me. Definitely, like Keita said, there's just so much happening inside emotionally that it's hard sometimes to put the words together. So I don't know if I'm as hopeful as everyone else. I do pray. I do have faith that this will turn into something different. I definitely agree with the peaceful protesting and what's happening as far as the rioting. Like Pooh said, it I definitely think it would be different if we were in a different time and state, but we're not even completely out of COVID. And because I work in the food and beverage industry, what worries me is whether or not our communities are going to be able to withstand what happens next. um, if our elders and our just regular people in the community are going to be able to even get to the grocery stores, are they going to have what's necessary for their families just to get by? And then, when we don't have that, that causes for robberies, home invasions, and a whole bunch of other methods of violence that is just unnecessary. Do I think people get to be angry? Absolutely. Do I say fuck the corporations? Absolutely. But do I say we get to use our voices for this purpose that is so huge? Because I know a lot of people are saying for a much bigger purpose or for a much bigger story. No, this is the big story. This is a huge purpose. So I definitely agree that it is important. But we can't tell others how to express anger or fear or how to act. So I'm not out there on the front lines. But one thing I do, God, I am so incredibly, like Pooh said, proud. And I guess the verb or the adjective rather, I don't know what to call it that I can use, is going to be the influence. We want our children to influence in the energy of the room. Fuck adapting to it. And so it's like they understand it and they know it. Other than being completely fed up, they see what is necessary to continue to move forward. Yes, there's a bunch of controversy inside of all of this, but it's like they fucking get it. And so that's really beautiful. But yeah,
Thanks.
it's a lot to process. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Ladine.
Yeah.
JR?
Y'all done took all the good adjectives, but nah. Now, first I'll say, I'll repeat what I said on the Defy Life show last night is I'm guarded. And I say that because this kind of, in this moment, really magnifies what I always feel as that being black in America means that you're not allowed to showcase your full range of emotions in fear of making someone else uncomfortable. And oftentimes that's other black people. Nobody wants to be around the angry black man, or when a black woman gets too excited, she's the angry black woman. So we're not allowed to show our full range of emotions, and for us to repeatedly see people that look like us being murdered on camera in broad daylight, and we voice our frustrations and we voice our concerns and our fears for our children, we get a yeah but. Like no other community in this country gets a yeah but when they see their people getting killed. So I'm guarded because I'm constantly aware of showing that full range of emotion. Secondly, I'm curious, simply because this is somewhere we've never been before in my lifetime. We've seen riots, we've seen protests, but we've never seen in my lifetime, and as far as I can remember, when I've been, of age to remember, a movement that has been prolonged for a number of days and it's not slowing down, and for it not just to be a monolith. There's so many types and groups of people that are involved in in this movement, that this could be groundbreaking. And so, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. And thirdly, I'll say I'm proud not only of the people that are out on the front lines, but I'm proud of us. And when I say us, I mean us here at Defy Life, for being able to have and provide a platform for people to voice what they have to say. Not all of us fight the same battles the same way. And for us to be able to provide a platform for not only this show, but for 10 other shows on the network, and guests that come on the shows, and listeners that engage with us. As I told Al earlier, since we released a new episode of Defy Life last night, and this morning I got 3 messages from white people asking me, "Hey, I know you know me. I'm really trying to figure out, have I done anything?" Or like, white people are curious to try to figure out, are they blind? Are they, tone deaf in their behavior? And that's encouraging to me because, as we said last night on the show as well, I'm tired of everyone thinking it's black people's responsibility to teach white people not to be racist, because that in that space, a lot of white folks tend to get intentionally stupid and act like they don't know what's right from wrong, and we got to teach them. I feel like a magical Negro sometimes. Well, we got to show up and teach them how to live right and treat us right, and that's not the case. So it's on them. And I tell everybody that, we talked about this last night as well, it's on them to have those uncomfortable discussions with their kids, the same way we have to have them with our kids. Don't look to us to solve your problems. Racism is a white people's problem that we shouldn't have to solve. So for that, I'm proud that we have a platform that we get to give people a voice who may be voiceless otherwise. So,
thanks, Jay. I haven't talked about this a whole lot because it just brings up so many emotions, most of which for me are not positive. Right. And so, having that feeling of being overwhelmed, overloaded, just, is not a space that I have wanted to stay in for too long. And I feel like the more I talk about it, the more that happens. And so I've been kind of shying away from having long conversations about this situation. But for me, the adjectives, one of the first ones that come to mind is anger. And as we know, oftentimes anger is an adjective that comes about, as a result of fear and pain. And, so I'm angry. And I think mostly because I am so, I'm afraid. I'm afraid for us as a people. I'm afraid for my children, particularly my Black son. Because we know that so much of this is directed specifically towards Black males. I'm afraid for the children, right? Like, we're dealing with all of this racial stuff, but as I think Ladine already mentioned, or it might have been a previous conversation about the whole corona situation, right? And so there's just so much going on, and these children are being traumatized. They're traumatized from the corona, from losing their friends, from having to stop school, from whatever situations are going on in their homes, from being at home on such a consistent basis with no refuge for either themselves by going to school or from their parents by going to work. They're being traumatized by not having enough food to eat, and so now we're compiling the trauma with all of this race relation stuff that's going on, and some of us, be it ignorance or be it just the way that we decide to parent, some of these children are being exposed to everything that is happening, and oftentimes not a real way to process. And so how is that going to manifest itself in the days to come, right? And how are we going to deal with it? And most often we're not prepared to deal with child trauma, right? And so And then we have the children who's being directly impacted by, you know, George Floyd's daughter, for instance, who's 6 years old. You know, how is this? How is she going to process this? What is her life going to look like now moving forward without her dad? Or the 17-year-old who actually filmed, which I just heard about today, they actually filmed the occurrence with George Floyd, right? Whose family has had to move from their home because of all of the backlash and the hatred that's being thrown at her, you know, with why didn't you do something? How could you have just stood there and filmed? Like the ridiculousness that's coming out of, you know, out of these situations, and how is that 17-year-old baby, how is she going to process this, and what supports are there for her? You know, and so I think about, and all of that just makes me angry, because this is a situation that exists, and we as people of color, we know that it has existed for as long as we've been in this land, but at the same time, it's such an unnecessary existence, right? We are in this place because of people not wanting to give up their privilege, of people deciding that somehow we are less than because of the color of our skin. Like the whole thing is it's just crazy to me. Another emotion that comes to mind for me is disdain. Disdain for the system, you know, disdain for some white people, you know, those that take advantage of their privilege, those that you spoke about, JR, who just, you know, decide to play stupid as if they don't know what's happening. And even those, you know, and I hope that I'm not offending you or your friends. I don't know who these people are that called you. Even those that called and asked you, are they racist? In my opinion, if you have to ask that question, then most likely you are, right? And why is it our responsibility to help you understand that you are racist and that you take advantage of your white privilege?
Right.
And so one of the things that struck me most, which I think that, you know, the Amy Cooper situation and George Floyd and even Ahmaud, like it just, those for me are the catalysts, right, for what's happening right now. Amy Cooper, you know, as this white woman, like I think for so many, she was that perfect example that helped people understand, particularly white people, but understand this systemic racism, right? And the way in which she used her white privilege was just a perfect example that said that she understood. I understand what my white privilege affords me.
Right.
I understand, you know, this system in that if I use certain words by describing this man as an African American, I understand what kind of response that would evoke. You know, I understand the relationship between police and African American men. And I understand that as a white woman, all I have to do is cry help and say that it's a black person that's after me, and I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be safe. And you also understand, she also understood what their response would be and what that could potentially mean for that African American man.
Absolutely.
Right. And so for you, like with no shame in the wide open, because she knew she was being taped. Right. And anybody who knows that you're being videoed, that is probably going to go somewhere. It's not going to just sit on someone's phone. Right. But that didn't matter to her. She was so comfortable and so confident and so arrogant about her white privilege that I don't care. Tape me and tape me saying that I'm getting ready to lie on you and describe you as this African American man, as if that is something that is just so distasteful and so disgusting that is going to evoke the kind of response that I'm wanting. Right. Like, just even talking about it and thinking about it just makes me want to vomit. Like it is just so, but I'm also thankful in that sick sort of way that it happened, because it just illuminated for thousands, millions of people, like what this thing really is. Like, and it's just it just crazy. I have still yet to watch the whole George Floyd video because I can't. I don't want. It's not that I can't. I don't want to. And as soon as I saw, I got to the point where, his knee was on his neck and his hand was in his pocket. And my response, I began to cry immediately, because I don't understand with such a cavalier attitude that you could just do this to another human being. Like, it's just disgraceful. And then lastly, I'll just say, that I guess for me, the other emotion would be agony, because my heart just breaks. It breaks for all of the people who are directly impacted, all of the families of the people, for those who will continue to go through it. As we look at all these protests, we are still being victimized and traumatized and blamed and brutalized, and so to what end? And I cannot deny that there are some great things coming out of it as it relates to, solidarity and the pride that you all are speaking of, and but we are still being victimized. And I just heard on the news this morning about how there are counties or police districts, who have pulled back from being willing to support Atlanta, right? Because of the charges that was just brought against those 2 police officers that, well, they were fired, but now there are charges pending. And so once the district attorney or the prosecutor announced that he was going to actually file charges, so we have police departments who have decided they are no longer going to assist Atlanta because they are afraid of their police officers having charges brought against them, right? And so your response is, let's not help because we're afraid of the charges. Why isn't your response, let's make sure that our police officers are doing the right thing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How the hell is that your response? And so while there's, I see where there's room for hope, and that's really where we should be as we, continue on this journey. But at the same time, it's just so hard for me anyway to get there, because every day there's just ridiculous shit continuing to happen. It's just crazy. So, all right. So the floor is open, just go for it. Whatever you've heard that you want to comment, anything else that you want to say. I just feel like there's so much that I could continue to say, but I'm not gonna hog the mic. And I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and have an opportunity.
Well, first of all, I want to ask Gina, you, Lay, and Keita this question. Now, we kind of touched on it last night. I want to get your perspective on this. What are your thoughts because as we talked about the violence and the rioting and the looting breaking out from the peaceful protests, and we talked about last night again that you have to be naive to think that it's only the protesters that are participating in this violence and this rioting. There are provocateurs, there's plants, and there's white supremacist groups that are all participating in the violence, but the protesters get all the blame. What is your response to the black folks who are telling other black folks how to feel and how to act, and basically being divisive within our own community?
For me, right, I think it's a setup, right? It's all a part of the plan. And so anytime that people can look at people of color or the oppressed period, because in every situation, right, oppression is not just about race, right? It's lots of things that go on. So anytime that the oppressor has the opportunity to paint the oppressed as the aggressor, as the one who is continuing to keep the trouble going, as the person that's wrong in the situation. They are going to, right? And we have to be smart about that. And so while I hear what you're saying, I don't want to tell people how to feel, right? Because your feelings are your own, and you do what you need to do with those. You feel however you feel. But I do believe that there is a smart way to do some things and a way that's not as smart, right? And I say it to Al all the time. We as people of color, we continue to play checkers while they play chess.
Mm-hmm.
And until we learn how to play chess, we are never going to win the game. And so I don't see anything wrong with people giving advice to other folks about how to be strategic in this game of chess. Like, you've got to learn how to play chess. And so if you were to ask me, while peaceful protests are wonderful and it has its place, to me, and this is just my humble opinion, at this point, I say stop.
Mm-hmm.
I say stop because they're setting us up. I say stop because I believe that it has already filled its purpose. And so we've protested. People have seen it. We know what the plight is, what the struggle is. Those who are going to assist are already aware. And for me, right, most of protest is about getting your voice heard. Your voice is heard. And so at this point, while they are using you as pawns, while they are using you as opportunities to kill us and continue to brutalize us, it's time to stop. This thing has become worldwide. We have nations. I just looked at, and I want to say it may have been sent out in the family group chat today, like the protest that's going on in France, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thousands. In fact, that is the largest protest that I have seen, period, right? And so it has gone international. And so people are aware. People are going to help those that are going to. They're going to do it at this point. So stop. Like, I feel like it's time to move on to the next strategy. Because at this point, they're shutting you down. They're shutting you down. The National Guard is there. And so their goal continues to be, let's paint them in a negative light and let's kill them, right? So let's stop putting ourselves out there at this point. And I totally know that it's not there. There are people out there that's just straight for peaceful protest, and there's other people. Now, there's some of us that's just out there clowning, right? Yeah. But we know that that's going to be, but so I'm not trying to tell people how to feel, but I just think that there has to be some organization and there has to be a plan past the protesting. So what are you going to do next? I just think it's time to move on to your next strategic step. What are you going to do? What are you going to do now?
Yeah, and that's why, I want to specifically point at those people who are telling people how to feel, and then literally telling them, you stupid, or like, it's whack, you wasting your time. Because again, we can't all fight the same battle the same way. And I agree with you that at some point, you do have to develop another strategy moving forward. Lay, Keita, y'all any feelings on, I know y'all seen it on social media where people literally getting on social media just to tell everybody they stupid. Like, it must be good to be that fucking cool where you don't have feelings around shit and you just get to tell people how to feel.
It really hurts as again, we as African Americans, we never have people back. Well, even the Caucasians, but I really look at, our race, because we're calling each other stupid. But I feel like you can't tell people what to do and how to fight for something. I totally understand what Gina was saying as far as, enough is enough as far as like stopping with all that's going on. But I'm really thinking that how the media will put things out there and show more of the problem, like all the fights and all this stuff, and the cops know, and they're locking up these people, so they know who's like doing all the riots, throwing all the fire, doing all this stuff and that. But the media is still going to show that maybe it's us, the ones that's trying to protest, because they want it to stop regardless. They don't want us to be protesting. They don't want us to do this. So I really feel like we shouldn't stop. Just keep going. Because how many times that we've signed petitions, we've tried to do this, we try to do that. We even, I would say we voted. Yeah, we voted with Obama there, but we can vote a little bit more when it comes to, like legislation and Senate and all that stuff, because we need more Democrats in that. But we come in numbers with certain things, and we try certain ways. We try to peaceful protesting and all this stuff. So I feel like people just continue doing what they're doing. Because right now, if you think about it, they didn't like what Kaepernick did. That was like the worst in writing right now. Back then, when he did what he did on the platform that he had. And people thought that was so stupid of him to do that, and it was a disgrace to our country and all this and this and that. So they're saying the same thing about what the kids are doing now with the protesting. But I say keep it going, because nothing has changed. It's not going to change. And just be fed up with it until it's some type of change happen.
All right. And I know we were supposed to give a shout out to someone when we first began talking. Colin Kaepernick was mine. I forgot to say his name. So shout out to Cap. Lay, anything to that question?
So I definitely agree. I don't think it's anyone's place to tell anyone how they should feel about the situation. I do definitely agree with Gina that this is all part of a plan, and all these little plants and whatever it is that they're using to start the nonsense. I mean, it's definitely sickening. But when I saw the news clip, because I refused to watch number 45, so when I saw the news clip of him and the way he just stands on the podium, and it's as if he's gratified by what's happening, because he's ready to invoke this martial law, and he's ready to, it's like he's pleased that this is happening right now, that the madness is happening, not the protesting. I am not advising that the madness is the peaceful protesting. That's not what I'm saying. Everything else that's happening, people are getting hurt out there, and they're not doing anything. They're doing nothing but trying to have their voices heard. And I definitely don't think, I'm not out there, so it's not my place to speak to what someone else is doing. But I definitely think that I do agree with Kita that I do think it needs to keep going, but, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it should be organized in a certain way, or, how we should be approaching the situation. The one thing that bothered me was I saw a video of Lil Scrappy, as a matter of fact, and he was saying, and he didn't say anything wrong, and it was nothing in regards to what he said. But it just reminded me of these stars or celebrities that they from where they are right now, they get to say, yeah, hell yeah, keep it going, and keep doing what y'all doing because we mad and all of this while you sitting in your pretty little house in your gated community. That's nice. And you might have the money to support your family for the next couple of months. But people that are losing their jobs because they're being burned, or people whose neighborhoods have been destroyed, and again, they don't have places to get food, they're looking at everyone else like, yo, what the fuck are y'all doing? So they might be the ones, and even if they're not the ones, but think about how they're feeling right now. So I don't know. I really don't know if it's I don't know if it's okay to tell anyone how they feel, because everyone right now is looking at it all from a different perspective. It's definitely from I just think this country is in a the only thing I see is pain. It's just pain. It's anger. It's hurt. It's frustration. It's so many different emotions on so many levels, and it just continues to be traumatizing for everyone, not just the children, but for everyone. So I really don't know how to feel about it, and I don't know what to say. I could say a little bit of this, I could have my opinion here and there and it not be right or wrong. It just be my opinion, but it's a lot for everyone to ingest. And I definitely think that more people, especially when it comes to social media or Facebook or, any kind of social media period, it's very easy to react on a post and hop on a comment, and be impulsive about what you're saying than actually really think about what you're saying, or then actually be able to relate. And I don't think there's a lot of relating happening.
All right.
So, yeah.
And it's not happening because some of us have the privilege of not having to, you know. So our children last night went to a protest here in the area that we live in. And I had mixed feelings about them going. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to tell them to stay home, right? But I understand, one, that they are adults, but also I want them to be able to do what they feel like they need to do. You know what I mean? And so if that is meaningful to you, then by all means. Now, I will say that I also thought about the fact that this protest that they wanted to go to in the town that we live in was much safer than going to a protest, let's say, in Atlanta. Right?
Unless somebody got crazy. And you never know when you have a mob. But
which is always a possibility. And also understanding that we live in a racist town. We do. And you can see it in many different ways, and so there's always that possibility of someone
you just never know.
You just never know.
In my heart of hearts, I was proud of them. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to go. I just knew I had a podcast to record. But if it wasn't for my podcast yesterday, I would have joined them. And where I am is I have an activist spirit. I don't have an activist energy anymore because I'm 50. I don't have that anymore. But I want them to experience what it's like to fight for change on the streets and understand that this is a tactic, a strategy, and a way to get your voices heard. And if there's something out there you want to be different, this is a way to do it. So yes, do that, experience that. Just do it strategically and safely, and exercise your American right to say this shit ain't right, and I want y'all to change it. I ain't got no problem with that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just wondering how y'all felt about that. That's one thing I have a problem with when people tell other people how to feel about shit. And literally start talking shit about people's legit feelings, and then you just having a conversation about nothing. So I like that.
Yeah, I can't stand that. Like, that really irks me when I see people talk about other people, and I'm like, what are you doing? Because see, I'm not like a protesting, like person, but I'll go out there, but I really haven't really like protested for anything, but I actually go out and vote. Like, that's how strong I am. I've taught myself, like, go and vote. I even tell people, come on, let's vote. I'm thinking that's my way of change, but I'm not going to knock somebody else for doing what they're doing.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's like with anything else. Like, who are you to say what people should be doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to feelings and the way you process stuff and the way that you react.
Right. And then especially on a platform like social media, because all you're doing is trying to change somebody's mind via, like, that shit has zero effect 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to change anybody's mind through a Facebook conversation. That shit never happens. What are you doing?
Right.
Like, I hate that.
What are you doing? And not only what are you doing just with this conversation that you're trying to have on Facebook where none of it is real anyway, right? Because you become whoever you want to be on Facebook, which has nothing to do with reality. But in your real world, what are you doing?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I watched this hip hop. What's the thing called? Hip hop something on Netflix. But at first when they were like looting Target or whatever, I was like, I don't care about no Target races anyway. But now they're kind of like going off the deep end and just going wilding. But that's just kind of like our culture at first. Like, if you see some shit broken, I mean, you going in there because, first of all, we don't have it. We're poor. And so in this hip hop documentary, it was talking about like the DJs in New York. And so they was like, they were waiting for a blackout because they wouldn't have their turntables or they whatever if it wasn't for those blackouts.
Oh, hip hop revolution.
DJs.
Yeah.
All right, that was just our thing. If it was open and free, I'm going in there to grab me something because I'm not going to end up getting it anyway because I don't have the money.
Right.
See, but that's also the part of this protest, and I don't know if that's a part of I guess, right, because we kind of had this conversation with my son, and so yes, that is a way to protest, like, but at the end of the day, like, it's still, to me, right, it's
stealing.
It's stealing. Yes, it's absolutely right. I started saying, at the end of the day, it's still stealing, but it's also contrary to everything that you're trying to do and say, right? Mm-hmm. And so it just gives them ammunition to talk about, to continue to paint us in this light of just being thugs and people who ain't about nothing and opportunists.
And low lives. Yeah.
Low lives and all of that. And more importantly, it gives them reason to attack us.
But that's my thing, though. Do they ever need a reason to attack us?
No, but clearly they do without reason, right? But now you're also giving them a reason, right? And so that helps them to feel more justified in doing what they're doing, and it supports their argument. Right. And so at the end of the day, right, a police officer's one of his job is to stop criminal activity. If you're out there being a criminal by stealing out of Target, then, even by law, they have the right to stop you. And because we know they don't have any boundaries, because we know they don't value our lives, then, why help them feel justified?
And I
Why
completely
help
get
them
that.
Be justified?
I completely get that. But like looking at it from the perspective of someone who's 19, 20, who lives in a community that's over policed and they're fed up and they're going to get the attention from the police anyway. So looking at it from their perspective, shit, if I'm going to get pulled over, stopped and frisked, harassed by the police anyway, I might as well get me some new fucking Jordans in the process. So I can see it from both perspectives, because they don't need ammo to kill us. They don't need reasons to victimize us. They don't need it because they do it anyway.
I get that, Jay. I just cannot, I cannot change my narrative, right? Because at the end of the day, that is not what you are supposed to be doing. Because like Al said, it's still stealing. You can try to justify it if you want to, but it is still stealing. I still say, even how I instruct my children, both of them, when you get pulled over, do whatever they're telling you to do. Right? Don't give them a reason. And we know they don't need a reason, but you cannot convince me that you still, regardless of how fucked up they are, that you still have a better chance of getting out of that situation being cooperative.
Right, I get it. That's what I'm saying. I agree with you.
As much as you can, you just have a better chance. Not that it's going to guarantee you anything. Because most of the time, at the end of the day, like, you know what I'm saying, your life don't mean a whole lot to them. But you have somewhat of a fighting chance, more than you would if you got out your car acting like a crazy person.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree. But at the same time, I get it. Like, why someone would see it differently. If somebody said I stole because I was hungry and I stole a fucking sandwich, it's stealing. But I get it. If I was starving and I stole a sandwich, or if I'm cold and I stole a coat.
But you ain't starving for no damn Jordans. You ain't starving for no Gucci bag and the Gucci bags.
What I'm saying is that it's not a direct analogy, but it's stealing. But I can get to where they are. I can see it. I can see why they are where they are. If I'm someone who's been living under those circumstances for 20 years, and I don't have any hope. I don't have a figure in my life that's going to teach me these lessons. I don't have these people around me that can provide me structure. I don't have the life experience to teach me. I don't have that forward thinking. I could see how somebody could get to that conclusion that, fuck it, they're going to fuck me up anyway. I'm going to be dead before I'm 25. I might as well just do this shit. Fuck it. I can see how you can get there.
I don't have no money. My mama can't afford to buy me shit anyway. So
these cops fucking with me, and the cops' reaction to them being the issue, the reason why we're in this situation is the police, and they are fully aware of that. And those those 6 officers in Atlanta, and multiple officers, and with the direction of the president. Their reaction to them being the reason that we're in this situation speaks volumes. They don't give a fuck. And so I could see someone who's in that situation in a day-to-day basis saying they fuck with me all the time anyway. I can't afford these Jordans. I'm going to take them any fucking way because they're going to fuck with me anyway. I can see somebody getting there.
I think we all could see it, and I don't think anybody's saying we can't. But I think there's also something to be said about what's a better approach.
But that's what I'm saying. What's better, though?
What's the basis?
What does better mean?
I think
what's the basis on that?
Within my
better in whose eyes?
Again, it's my responsibility that I think if I see a better approach in terms of what outcome I'm trying to accomplish, I'm gonna voice that. Because I don't think that's the best approach to get to where we want to get, which is justice, and to get people to side in us. There's a lot of things I can see how somebody sees it and why they make that choice. I can see how somebody is racist. Shit, if you white and you grew up the way you grew up, okay, I can see why you racist, but that don't mean I'm gonna be like, hey, you shouldn't be though. That ain't the best way to live.
No, that's why I keep repeating that I agree with you.
You're not heading in the direction I'm going.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I keep repeating. I agree with you. It's just not far fetched for me to see like why something else is madness or it's as people say bedlam. No, it's not. It's human nature.
I ain't getting
that. but that's why I'm trying to get like what's better though, because I'll ask this way. In regards to race relations in this country, what major shift has ever happened without violence?
They're
Board the 1954 integration of schools.
Nope. Violence was there too.
What was that?
You didn't notice that those black kids I'm talking about from both sides. There weren't people like those students getting and people getting beat up in those schools where they had to have the army come protect those students while they're working in schools.
That was after schools were integrated.
Right, and that was part of the civil rights movement, which was signed 8 days after there was the 8 days. No.
I'm talking Brown versus education in the 50s.
Right, and in those moments too, there were houses burned. I'm talking about throughout the entire process, like from the beginning to the end of that moment. There's violence from both sides. That's how they get what they want. Intimidation, violence. That's how it happens. Usually there's two ways of getting justice.
What the oppressor is doing. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about both, from both ways.
There's been violence in our country before its inception.
Right, that's what I'm
assuming
saying.
Everything that's been accomplished in this country probably has some violence associated.
Right, that's my point.
I thought the question was answering in terms of how black folks got changed.
No, I'm talking about everything.
Was violence not involved? And I think in that case, that's a great example. Whereas black folk, we did not respond. And I love Lay's usage of the difference between reaction and responding. And in my belief, Brown versus education, we got that through our strategic response. And shout out to Thurgood Marshall.
Right. But even in if you're going to look at the process still going on, there was still abuse and there was still houses being burned. There was still crosses being burned in people's yards. There was still people being coming up missing in the aftermath. So I'm talking about from both sides. In that struggle, litigation and violence are the only ways to really get procedures done in this country. And even if you put that hard stop on when that Brown versus the Board of Education, you put that hard stop after, right after it was done, and say nothing else after that matters. That's one out of how many situations?
Right, but
which shows that peaceful protest doesn't work either. None of this shit works until it does. There's no blueprint to say what works because everything we've tried doesn't work for 400 years until it does. Whether that be by violence, by litigation, however that is. Doesn't work until it does.
Wow, we don't have, we have not reached the beloved community that Martin Luther King preached about. I agree. So you're right. Nothing has quote unquote worked. I guess how I would phrase it in terms of better is, to me, my life experience and my understanding of history, one has been more effective than the other. And I'm not talking about has violence from the oppressor occurred, because that's not my concern. What I'm referring to are strategies of how I want people of color or people who believe that justice, freedom, and equality should exist in this country. These are the strategies that I would recommend we use because they've been more effective than others.
How?
And
that's why I'm asking
I can understand why somebody's mad as fuck and they want to burn shit. I've been there, and so did I. And honestly, I have vandalized shit in my past.
How have they been more effective, though, Al?
Because ultimately, when you are crossing the line in terms of violence, because all activism, all protesting usually involves breaking the law. But some is civil disobedience, and stealing is beyond civil disobedience.
Right.
And what makes civil disobedience effective is because ultimately the ramifications that you face from it aren't the same in terms of stealing. Stealing, if someone catches you, now you're doing time.
Yes, but I'm not asking you from yours or my moral compass. I'm not asking from your moral compass. I'm asking specific situations where completely peaceful
I'm analyzing
protest.
this based on what I'm analyzing this in terms of what I believe is effective based on the consequences. I think when we all do choices, it should be a benefits. What do you call
versus
it?
risk.
analysis. So when
I'm talking about the final result. I'm asking. This is a simple question. The final result. What has gotten done, completed, accomplished, simply by being completely peaceful?
Brown versus education.
And I said, even if you want to cut it off right where that happened, because violent shit happened afterwards. If you want to cut it off at that hard stop, fine. But that's one out of how many? How many things have not happened?
Hold on. Wait a minute. The bus boycott and was it Selma? Where was that? Another one.
No, absolutely not. There were riots around that too.
There.
Yeah, I thought they were riots.
Yes, there were riots. There were riots in Alabama around that.
I'm gonna need to look that one up. All I remember was bus boycott.
That was that, and that was part of the civil rights movement, which again they marched for 4 years before people rioted 8 days straight around the country and got that bill signed. So there was definitely rioting and violence around that.
See, what I'm talking about is the
right.
bus
Y'all are
boycott.
not about.
Right, we're talking about two different things. The bus boycott impacted the integration in terms of with Rosa Parks, in terms of like the buses.
I'm speaking
but
on.
I'm saying the Civil Rights Act was years later, and yes, it was right after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it was signed right after 8 days of rioting and looting that came after Martin Luther King was assassinated. I agree, they were connected. But what I'm pointing to was a second example where civil disobedience resulted in change.
Right. So I'll go back to my original question, which was sweeping change throughout this country. The bus boycott was in one city. I'm talking about something that has sweeping change throughout the country. The bus boycott did not affect the entire country. It was in one city. It was in Montgomery.
And so I think really, I really think that in a lot of ways you guys are arguing apples and oranges, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it really is both of you, or not even just you, people who are proponents of peaceful protest could probably come up with as many examples, Jay, as somebody who is a proponent of violence and rioting, right? And for anybody to say that one happened in isolation is foolish. And for anybody to be able to say, you can't say which one was more impactful, because oftentimes they either happen simultaneously or they happen consecutively. Right?
Which is my point, because that's what I'm asking.
No, but wait. Because if one happens, you can't say. So it's hard to say what's the effectiveness, which one is more effective.
Right, exactly. Right? Which is why I asked the question, because everybody kept saying but no, one's
your
better.
Question was, I didn't hear your question to say.
That's why I'm trying to repeat it now. My question was, how can you say it's better or it's more effective if you can't give examples? We can't say it's more effective or it's better if we can't give examples of when it's worked versus when it hasn't worked. That's why I asked the question, because we're all saying, I even caught myself saying it.
But you also can't say when it didn't work.
I did. It was not my argument.
You keep trying to say
it was not my argument. My argument was,
I gave two examples that worked, so it's not
this is what I'm saying. As he has given examples, you keep saying, nah, that didn't work. There was
because
also
it
violence.
Didn't answer my question.
One came before the other, and can't say that the peaceful protest wasn't impactful just because violence happened afterward.
Okay. I'll put this simply. I'll put this really plainly. What I'm getting at is that you can't prove that something was accomplished or it was more effective without violence or without protesting, because you can't separate the two. You just said it. It happens concurrently. It happens like in the midst of each other. So there's no way we can say if keeping violence and rioting out of it is more effective, because it always is a hint, or there's always violence and rioting there, even if it's not in cahoots with. It's still there, is what I'm saying. And so violence is always there. It's going to happen. There's no way we can prove that it doesn't work, because it's always there.
So I disagree. So I'll be, and let me be clear. I totally disagree. I hear Gina and I hear you. I believe there is evidence that civil disobedience has worked. and has produced the outcomes that it sought. And I don't remember history. I ain't a historian, but I don't remember history where there were riots connected to the bus boycott. I do not remember history of riots and looting being connected to Brown versus education, where they integrated schools. I don't remember that. And if it did, maybe my opinion, I'm sort of open-minded. My opinion might change and said, you know what? We can't count those examples. But as I remember history, those are two critical examples that when I look at what rioting and looting has produced, they have not produced the results except for distractions. That's how I look at it.
Right, which is why I said again, a city ordinance does not compare to what I said as a national sweeping change in culture. That's a city ordinance. So I don't count that. That's not part of that doesn't answer my question. Is what I'm saying. You can keep repeating it, but it don't answer my question.
Yeah, and that's fine. And for me, like whether it's city, state, national, like it's all important, right? For one to act like a city ordinance could not be impactful on a state situation or a national situation doesn't make sense to me. And while you may have been, and I don't remember, maybe your question was just broad sweeping national occurrence, what difference had it made? Yeah, there is. But there's also, you have to take into consideration the smaller parts being a part of the larger.
Right, but the reason I asked it that way because we're now on a national scale. We're not on a city ordinance scale right now. Like the state of Minnesota is suing the Minneapolis Police Department. That's local. It may make changes in that area, and it may eventually lead to national change, but we're already on a national scope. That's why I asked it that way.
Yeah, because it sounds like to me you both are saying, that you got a Dr. King and a Malcolm. So everything is helping each other out. So what Jay is saying, when you protest, you loot, all the looting and all that stuff, it takes away the capital. They don't like their money being taken away. So it's going to be national because it's a problem. Right. So then that's when you get the president involved. But then when you have the Dr. King, the peaceful protesting and all that stuff, that do help change laws within the state, within the, United States at that. So it's kind of the same what y'all saying.
May
I?
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, lady.
No. So I just wanted to give an update and kind of veer away from this for a second. But this is pretty dope, y'all. So apparently all 4 officers that have now been charged in George Floyd's death, I don't know if y'all were aware of that or not, they upgraded the officer who pressed his knee into Floyd's neck. I don't want to acknowledge him by his name. I don't think his name needs to be acknowledged at all, but they definitely charged him. He was previously charged with 3rd-degree murder, and they have upgraded his charges to 2nd-degree murder. They also charged the other officers. They have been charged with aiding and abetting 2nd-degree murder and aiding and abetting 2nd-degree manslaughter. So I want to give a whoop whoop and say yes for all of this. Oh, it's just that's
wonderful, right? That's wonderful.
Right.
But really, it's a small victory because that shit don't mean nothing until they're convicted. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and that's basically what his family's saying. His family is saying yes. They are, they appreciate the. I'm trying to find the exact words they used here. They know that the convictions were necessary. Fuck, appreciate them, but they want justice, because they just basically want to see justice served. So yeah, we'll see.
And again, it's another case of how clear cut can this shit be,
right?
Like, we talked about this was, when Trayvon Martin was murdered. And we had the audio. We thought, oh shit, we finally got this shit on like audio. Like how much clear cut can this be? Like now we 15 years later, or however long later, 10 years later, and now we got a video in broad daylight, and now we saying this shit again. Like, it can't be more clear than this. Like, I'm skeptical as fuck. Like, hold on.
Shit, but the Garner video for me was clear as hell.
That was clear as day. Most of these videos have been clear as day. All of these videos have been clear as day and televised.
But even the Garner video was what, 2 minutes? So it wasn't enough time to process. This one now, like it's like an evolution. Now you got 10 minutes of
like the intent,
right? The complete intent of 10 minutes of having your knee on somebody's neck.
Yeah, I got that.
So now it's another step up. So now it's like, oh, do we really believe this shit is gonna happen?
I think it's gonna be monumental. I think, like I said, I think this is it. I think he's gonna be the poster child.
I sure hope so.
He's gonna be the example, you know, and I just feel it's different. This one's different.
I agree with you, Thomas. I think that it is different in that some things are going to change, whether it's with him specifically, you know, or like, but I just think across the nation, you're going to see changes in local laws, in police department. Like there are just going to be things that are put in place that is going to at least slow down, right, this type of brutality, or make police officers think twice. So I absolutely think that between these most recent occurrences, that there's going to be some changes. How much, where they are, you know, who knows, you know, but I think that there are going to be some changes. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to say, I've seen videos, about 4 or 5 of them, where officers are turning on other officers for like hitting. I saw an officer push this kid, and then the female officer practically jumped down his throat and was shoving him and pushing him. We're like, dude, don't do that. You know. So now they're fed up. So now we may have police policing the police. You know, because I mean they really make it bad for everyone. You know, you probably had some with trepidation and really didn't want to say anything, but now they're like, dude, I have to say something because my livelihood is at stake. Like I can't let you run amok like that because my livelihood is at stake as well. So I just think this one's different.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Right. Let's hope so. You're right.
Because at this point, you know, that's pretty much all we can do.
Right.
I also want to add, Keith, I think you hit it on the head when you talked about going after their money.
Yep.
And I think one thing I know this system respects is when you start messing with their money, they really start acting different. And there are like there's some ways that have been effective to when you got this mass of people and this mass of attention and sentiment. And this is why I'm talking about, like, channeling emotions can be real effective. And we start taking with their money on a consistent basis. Walmart would act different. Target would act different. Starbucks would act different.
Right.
Because they're afraid of you taking their money.
But that's where it comes back to us on a broader level, and making buying through black companies and shopping black a lifestyle instead of a one day out of the year event. Because we've gotten to the point where, you know, Keon used to say it all the time, where the white man's ice is colder, and we won't shop with our own people because we have this. I don't even want to call it self-hatred, but something has been ingrained in us to think that our product is not as good, or we deserve a discount just because I'm black with you. We don't ask those questions of white companies, so we don't have the dedication to not give them our money because we can barely do that shit once out of the year.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Right. And so while it is wonderful, yes, absolutely support black businesses, support your community, like all of that. But I just think it's bigger than that. And I think it's going to take more than us people of color, to make this thing happen. And to ask white folks to just support black businesses, to me, is not realistic, nor does it make a lot of sense, right? And so we, as a community of people, we have to make some decisions. And that's what I meant about, and again, let me clarify. I'm not saying that people should not be protesting, but I think if you're going to do it, it needs to be peaceful. But there also has to be something bigger than that, right? So strategically, what else are you going to do? And it has to be hitting them in the pockets. It has to be people, white folks too, making deliberate decisions that we are not going to partner with particular organizations because of what you stand for. We are not giving money to particular organizations because of what you stand for and what you have done historically. And then we have to decide there has to be boycotts. In my opinion, there has to be boycotts. Right, there has to be, and there was something circulating about, for instance, and I don't want to misquote, but it's one of the universities in Minneapolis, right, that have decided we are no longer supporting the police department in whatever ways that we do. University of Minnesota, right? And so it has to be those types of actions that's going to get the attention of. I don't care what y'all say. That damn Trump, the whoever, they don't give a fuck about you looting the Target in Buckhead. Don't nobody care about that. Really. That is not big enough. That is not where they are going to feel the pain. It has to be more strategic. It has to be more widespread. It has to be in ways that really, really count. Because all Target is going to do is get their insurance money. They're going to clean up their store, and they're going to be back to doing business the same way they did before last week.
They shut down 178 stores.
Right, and they all are insured, and they're all going to be opened up in the next week.
They shut down 178 of them.
That's impacting their bottom line.
Right.
But that's why I'm saying I agree that it's going to take more than that. But that's why I mentioned that hell, we can't even get started by shopping with our own people. That's a grand leap to get from, hey, let's have Black Business Tuesday. And we can't even do that shit to say, hey, let's make it a lifestyle and get white folks involved. I had this question come up today. So one of the white people that contacted me was trying to reach out to all of her white friends and say, hey, let's take one day and shop with a black business. She got belted on because white people was I don't even think about who owns the place when I go into a store. Unless it's somebody I know. I don't think about it if it's a black business or a white business. They don't even think so. To get them on that wave, it's going to take a lot because it's going to take a lot for us to even get there.
And we have a tremendous amount of buying power because I'm just looking at this article right now.
Right.
Yeah, $3.9 trillion. This article that was released in March 2019. So $3.9 trillion.
And 30 million, and 30 million that's not counted in that just from black churches.
We can definitely make a dent with 3.9 trillion. It's not feasible for all of us to do it, but if enough of us circulate and circumvent through us, it can make a huge difference. That's the old concept we have of. We were spoken about, Jay, Al, and I, and Keon, 2-3 years ago about sending our prospects and our young men to young women to HBCUs as the top 150 prospects in the nation. Send them to HBCUs and let those HBCUs get that money and build their programs off that talent.
Oh, stop, Defy. I hear Jay, I hear Al, I hear Thomas. Y'all talking a good game, but you guys did not stop watching NFL when everybody was trying to protest and
Say it.
stop the NFL. And then I feel a little different about black businesses. Like, I love my black people. I love my black businesses. I'm the one that I always support. But we are high as hell when it comes to product. If I buy a shirt from my homegirl, it'd be like $30 or $40 when I can get it for $10.
Because we don't have the
So
we don't have. We're not in 30.
it's
35
hard.
stores.
It's hard to buy from us because we jack prices up like no other.
No, we're not jacked up. We're not in all those stores. It's
Well, I
just, we just have
understand
one
that,
store.
but
us.
It's not unique to black businesses. It's the same for independent white businesses and Asian business. It's not a black thing. If you want to support an independently owned, you're gonna pay more. That's just how it is. Right. It's not a black thing. And,
I can't hear you in here.
And I mean, we actually had those discussions about not watching the NFL and not reporting on the NFL. We had those discussions. We actually tried a show without it, and our numbers tanked. So,
and our website tanked.
Because we're a sports-centric website. So we had to make a decision. Do we want to still be in business or do we want to still watch the NFL? So,
but I feel like this. Colin Kaepernick, he did his thing because you got to think about it. I know a lot of celebrities are getting flagged now. Like, what are y'all doing? All this stuff. But they have to understand, like, those boys that play sports, like LeBron and all of them, like, they just going to have to just stop because they have the platform. Like, we small people, it's not much we can do but what we're doing out there now and trying to vote. Running out you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But when these boys making millions and millions of dollars and they playing for these owners and all this stuff that are racist, well, definitely with the NFL, because they're showing you that. Like, stop playing. I know it maybe hurt your pockets a little bit, but like, completely stop. I'm sure LeBron can help some of them young rookies out.
Well, they have.
I'm just saying they got the help. It's a community.
Well, for one, I'm just not big on making it celebrities and athletes' responsibility to take on all social issues. When they do, I give them kudos, but I don't blame them if they don't, because they're people and they get to make a choice too. But LeBron has made that stance. When the entire NBA has made that stance. When the Clippers owner, when Donald Sterling was calling athletes and Magic Johnson and everybody niggas on tape, they said, we're not playing until you fire him. Until you get rid of him as owner, we're not playing. And that led to him being ousted out of the league immediately. So they have taken stances on things. It's easier in the NBA because it's a players' league versus the NFL, which is an owners' league. And the difference in that is, owners get more of the pie of the money. It's they have more power when it comes to negotiating to the in the collective bargaining agreement. So the NFL is more as an owners league. Now that could be changed. It would take a lot more. And in college, we saw at the University of Missouri when their players decided they weren't going to play because a black female student was accosted on campus, and they made immediate change. So yes, you're right. If they do decide not to play, they can impact change immediately. But it does affect that. Like, if we ask that of them, who's going to cover their future?
Well, I'm not really talking about. I'm just talking about like the guys that already been paid
the big time guys,
thousands and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're not playing now.
Right. So that's and they got to take pay cuts for the rest of this year because they're missing games. So if LeBron says, let's say LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving say, hey, we're gonna stop playing and start our own league. You know how many people have said we're going to start another league and it failed and they lost all their money? Vince McMahon is going through that now. He lost the XFL $500 million because he tried to start his own league. And that's with him being a businessman. Like,
hey, what is Ice Cube doing good with his league?
3-on-3.
He ain't making no money.
There you go. Everybody can go to Ice Cube League.
How do I get back? How do I
And get peanuts for compensation.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it sounds good. That would be great. I agree. But who's going to cover their future? And like, and I can't ask them to do that. And I ain't quit my job to go fight for. Like, I still got to work.
Yeah.
So, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You hear me?
So, I can hear you.
Okay.
So, we are about out of time. So, let's go ahead. If anybody has any, get back on, closing comments.
All right, well, I'll go.
I'll say, so y'all ain't got nothing to say. Everybody has so much to say.
I'll just say this, man. In any situation that has this much weight attached to it, we're going to disagree. We're not going to always see things the same way. And like I said before, we're not always going to fight the same battle. Even though we want to get to the same place, we want to win the same war, we're not going to fight the same battle. But it takes these conversations, and it takes being able to not take shit personally and listen to the other person's perspective, whether that's somebody that's on your side or even whether you see sides or not. Just listen. And like I said, around COVID-19, listen to what the fuck your kindergarten teacher told you. Like with COVID, we say this all the time. She told you to wash your hands, stay out of people's personal space, and wash your ass. That's all they ever told us. So if they would have just listened to, so even the same shit, if we just treat people well, if we ever learn that concept of just listening to our kindergarten teacher and following the golden rule, we'll be all right. But we grown and we know too much, so we got to learn the hard way.
Well, I think the kindergarten teacher told you a whole lot more than wash your hands and
she
wipe
did,
your ass.
but I'm assuming everybody knows how to add and subtract, so I'm leaving that shit out.
Well, she also taught you, to share,
Right.
And so there's actually a whole poster. Have you ever seen it? A whole poster, Everything I Need to Know I Learned from My Kindergarten Teacher.
No,
and it's really a whole poster with all the rules. I'll send it to you. It's
right.
everything. And it's real. It's like, to your point, it's facts.
Right.
Everything that you need to know to operate in this space like a decent human being,
right.
You really learned in kindergarten. And if you
cover
didn't,
your mouth
then
when you cough.
You had a horrible teacher.
Exactly.
So I will just say, I agree with everything that you just said. This last 45 seconds or so. Earlier, you was talking a lot of bullshit, but I mean, like, just
That's
this
right.
last 45 seconds.
You get to have a whack opinion too. It's good. The good thing about this is this shit is recorded, and I'll be on the right side of history. But go ahead.
Whatever. It's all about, conversation. It's about being true. It's about love, and,
right.
And there's so many cliches out there that speak about love and doing to others as you do it to yourself, as you want to be treated. But the point is, like, love really makes the world go round. And if we could find that space of connectedness, if we can find that space of, understanding that I am because you are, and vice versa, then we would just be in such a better place. At the end of the day, fight a good fight, do what you think you need to do, and hopefully we'll all come out on the right side. Anybody else? This is your opportunity. You got about.
I'll jump in and say, I appreciate what both of y'all said. I'll just add power to the people. I'll add that I hope we are moving in a place in time where the people who want justice for all act like it and start holding our citizens accountable through our actions for wanting equal justice for everyone. And so if these people have been charged, that's great, but that's not enough. We need them to be convicted. We need them to be sentenced. We need standards to be set differently. And it's not just about law reform and police reform. Honestly, it's about white people reform. It's about we need to invest. We as a society, although they're going to have to do the work, we as a society need to invest in changing white people, because that's what it's going to take in terms of true accountability. Like someone said earlier, like racism is a white people problem in the sense of if they wanted to eliminate it, they're the ones to eliminate it. I totally agree with that. So I hope that's the place we're moving, that the people who ask you, am I racist, is because they want to embark on a journey of getting that out their system. Because we need more folk like that. That's what it's going to take. Y'all got to be anti-racist with your friends and yourself to come on this side of the street.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'll
Peter
go.
Thomas. Okay.
I'll go. I'll just go back on what we started talking about earlier. Is just we as people, we need to just have each other's back. Just be more positive with each other. Don't hate on our millennials that's out there. I'm so-called a millennial, but I'm an old millennial. I'm almost done with that. But
moron, old millennial.
But I mean, just look at these kids. They're fighting. They're fighting for freedom. We, as the older generation, need to look at them and thank them for what they're doing, even though we don't like what they're doing. But also use our strength because we believe on voting. Like, let's vote, because we got a lot of numbers out there, and we need to do what we need to do as people and vote. So vote is so important. Other than that, I love you guys. I wish everybody safe. My whole country, it hurts me so bad to see what's going on and how things haven't changed. But one day it will be a day where we can stand up and say we did that. We're gonna be in the books, y'all.
Hey, well, pardon my passion, but I'm gonna take it back to the word of the week on Speak the Truth, man. Hey, continue to ride. You know, do whatever y'all gonna do. Shit, y'all do it. You know, I done seen my father get beat with fucking billy clubs and my uncle get beat with billy clubs, and I done had my back jumped on and choked and threw in a paddy wagon for 4 hours and thrown in jail. And then after a few court cases, I hear the fucking cop call me and tell me, hey, we thought you were someone else. So, I mean, hey, ride. That's all. That's where I am with it.
All right. All right. Lay? Say something.
Yeah.
Ladine, bring us home.
We kind of got a little off track of where we was, but I think it was beautiful how it turned out. I just definitely just keep our eyes and ears open and continue to just instill in our families the best that we can, and our children and ourselves, and really just look to be open-minded, open in what's happening. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Guard your family and do the best that we can with the tools that we have. I do think we all can do better. I think that it's nice to sit back and have these conversations. Ha ha, he, no. We actually got to stand up and start doing stuff. And that's myself included. Absolutely. So, definitely, I think we need to make more change ourselves as individuals. It starts with us. We're talking a whole lot about not going to these businesses, but just even businesses that support number 45 himself. I love me some Chick-fil-A. And I just don't even want to walk up in there no more. I mean,
hey, I'm done with them.
plenty
I'm
of
done
business,
with them.
right? So it's like we really got to stand our ground. The only way that we're going to actually make change happen, really make it happen, is by standing our ground. Period.
Voting.
Right. And
locally.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, Keita.
Yes.
We got to vote. We got to vote locally and not just wait every 4 years for the presidential race. I'm with you on that.
Right. You got to vote, and every state, I believe, has election day coming up in June at some point. So figure out when yours is. June 9th for the state of Georgia. Every other state, I don't know, but find out what that is and find yourselves at the poll and vote. Strategy number 1, 2, 7, and 522. Vote.
June 11th in North Carolina. So everybody get out there and do it, man. Like,
get out there and vote.
Right.
And take somebody. Take somebody with you, especially your children. Right. Teach them. Vote, vote, vote. So on that note, guys, love you. Great show. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Good night.
1 Hour Wednesday. Good night.
Welcome to the Anything, Everything, and Nothing podcast with Lynn and Kim. Join us as we discuss the latest in everything from entertainment and current events to the craziness that is our real life.
Let's laugh, let's live, let's talk about it. New episode every Tuesday on the Defy Life Podcast Network. And remember, if you're not defying life, then what are you doing? Lynn and Kim.